And this, not by any coincidence, is Glenn Danzig. I'm going to be talking to him.
Basically, my rules are, there are no rules. Whatever you want to do is great as long as you stay within the framework you set, you know, and that your fans, you know, also are used to, you know what I mean? That whole thing. I think if you want to explore all these areas, it's all right to do so as long as you keep it hard and, you know, not soft. Everything can be done in, you know, the right way. There is a very tense blues song on the news record. It's like, it's very tense. It's not like a sit-down happy blues song. I don't write sit-down happy blues songs even when I do. And then hopefully, if I have the time, I'm going to write a song together with Willie Dixon, which is very cool because that's who I really like when it comes to blues, like Willie Dixon, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, that kind of stuff. Some Robert Johnson stuff is okay, but for me, like a song like Smokestack Lightning is 10 times better than anything Robert Johnson ever wrote. For me, you know, that's how I feel. At least here in America, it's kind of like people like to talk about freedom and people like to talk about how wild they really are. And, you know, not just, you know, bands, but whoever, you know, and how free America is and things like that. It's almost like you can be free, but only to a certain point. Like, especially with, like, say, if I put it in the context of what I'm doing, both on a personal level, when I just walk out in the street, and live, on stage, and on the record, it's like there are no rules for me, except the rules that I place on myself. And if I want to get as wild as I want to get, I will get as wild as I want to get. If it lands me in jail, well, then I land in jail. But others talk a good game. I'm doing it. So when they slag me, or whatever they say, I just can sit back and say, well, I do it. You don't. You know? This other guy, he sits behind a typewriter or behind a piece of paper and he writes. And he sits in his room at night and he writes. And that's all he does. He doesn't go out there and live it. I go out and live it 24 hours a day. If they're flooding the markets with these really soft, you know, MTV pop records, and here comes this maverick record producer with his own label putting out these kick-ass albums that are just like, you know, forget the rules, here's the stuff. It makes the other stuff look tame and, you know, wimpy by comparison. And that's what they don't want it to look like, but it is. It is what it is. Should I drive a band? Usually I look for people to stay in a band with who drive themselves. It's not so much that I have to drive them. Like a person like John on guitar, I mean, I don't have to say, John, you have to be the best you can be at all times, because he's already doing that. And that's what, I mean, it's a personal thing with him. He comes from a classical training, music school. I mean, I don't even have to say that to him. I mean, I'll think he did a great show, and I'll say, it was an incredible show, John. He's just like, it sucked. I hate it. I was terrible. And I'm like, sounded good to me. I don't know. You know what I mean? This German magazine, I did an interview with them when we were just over there, and they said, is it true that, I think it was German or Italian, I forget, they say, is it true that you and Rick Rubin held Roy Orbison down and made him do the song? And I was like, I almost was tempted to go, yeah, and then we kicked his ass or whatever, but it was just silly, you know what I mean? Because I obviously have never met Roy Orbison. He's the most, like, gentle, like, he's like Southern gentleman, you know, he's just like very polite, soft-spoken. I mean, you would never even think of doing something like that to him, but it was just really funny. I wondered where they get their information from. It was very funny.
Well, it just seems like an unlikely pairing, you know. I mean, the thing is, I think most people who would be Danzig fans would probably not believe that Roy Orbison is such a big influence on you, and the same way as like Elvis Presley and stuff like that, you know.
I don't know. A lot of people have no problem with it. It might be an American thing. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you because, I mean, you were talking about the Elvis thing. We were just down on the bayou in New Orleans shooting on the one, and you'll have like a younger person will come up and tell me I sound like Jim Morrison or whatever. And this guy on the bayou, you know, he did the swamp tour for us, the whole deal. I mean, it was his land for generations and generations, and he's got his Cajun accent. He said, you know, I like that song, Glenn. He said, you know, you sound like Elvis Presley.